Auburn got some wins going into the portal. 2 key defenders staying at Auburn.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's portal opening eve, and we got some good news over the last 24 hours or so. Demarcus Riddick bolstering what will be potentially one of the best linebacker rooms in the SEC. But let's start with Malik Autry, because I think Malik Autry and the discussion around Malik Autry possibly slid under the radar a little bit because of the position that he plays, because of where he's from, right down the road at Opelika High School. And when you guy like Malik Autry, I don't think you bring him in for his freshman season. You bring him in for everything after that. And I think keeping him on the roster as part of an important defensive line class from a season ago, him, Jordan Crawford, Darian Smith, I think it's big. It's a win for Vontrell King-Williams, and I think it's a win for the potential and hopeful development of Malik Autry. He's always played so much larger than everyone else. I went to go see him at Opelika High School a few times, and like you could tell pad level was something that you could tell that could be an issue at the next level because he was so much larger than everyone else. You didn't need a roster to figure out who Malik Autry was because he's a head taller than everyone else. And typically with guys like that, it takes them 2 off seasons to really get going and understanding the leverage and SEC technique. And I think this is awesome because now Auburn is going to reap the benefit of this Malik Autry potential development under Vontrell King-Williams. I also love that the defensive line is not going to have to undergo a whole lot of changes, if at all, when it comes to schematically and how they're coached, because they've got the same defensive coordinator and they've got the same defensive line coach, of course, with DJ Durkin and Vontrell King-Williams. So I think that is massive. Also, just defensive linemen in the portal are expensive. The market on them, talked with Brian Smith on the show that dropped this morning. It doesn't get more expensive based off of what we've seen for role players at a position than defensive tackle. And I think Auburn's kind of suffered through that over the last few years, but they did what they had to do because that's the market. And when you look at defensive line, you have 3 guys returning, we're assuming. We've heard from Malik Autry officially. As I sit down and do this, we have not heard from Jordan Crawford. We've not heard from Darian Smith. Those are your 3 returning interior defensive linemen. Yes, you signed Corey Wells, who I think is good enough to contribute right away out of the high school ranks. And then you signed Tavion Branch. He could be good. Is he as good and ready day one? We'll have to see. It's tough to start in the trenches in the SEC as a freshman. I think Corey Wells physically is gifted enough to do that. We'll see with Tavion Branch. Don't know if I want Corey Wells to be a starter, but I do think he can be part of that interior defensive line rotation. Okay, so you've got 2 guys signed from the high school ranks. Let's go through all the guys who are leaving for various reasons. Dallas Walker, Bobby Jamison Travis, kind of massive loss. I don't think we really understand how good he was last year. Zackevius Walker, Jay Hardy, and James Ash, all guys you lost due to eligibility/graduation. And then Malik Blockton and Antonio Coleman expected to portal tomorrow when the portal does, in fact, officially open. This is a room where you're going to have to get bodies. And it's going to be interesting to see how they balance. And I think we'll be able to tell by the type of signing, whether it comes from production or upside or previous rankings, whatever that might be, portal rankings or how they were ranked coming out of high school, depending on how old they are. But this is a position group where you're going to need bodies. Because we kind of saw a little bit of versatility from Auburn's edge/strong side defensive ends last year, but these are the guys you're losing at end/edge. Keldrick Falk, guy who scooted inside some. Kieran Crawford, Chris Murray, Amaris Williams, a guy who scooted inside some, and Jamonte Waller. And when you look at the edge guys that are currently expected to come back, and we're just assuming because we haven't heard anything one way or the other, Jared Smith, Joe Phillips, J.J. Falk, and Chris Wells, not guys who I'm anticipating scooting inside to play 3 technique a bunch. I think they'll all have individual roles that make sense, especially Jared Smith. Can't wait to see and hear more about Joe Phillips and J.J. Falk if they come on, because now this is kind of the year where you're expecting them to take that step developmentally. But defensive line, you're going to need bodies. And I think Malik Autry is one of those guys that you can build around, as is Jordan Crawford, as is Darian Smith. I'm okay with that being your core because they have both, well, Autry and Crawford, Smith to some extent, depending on what you want to do, but they've got versatility to move along the defensive line. If you want them to play a shade nose, if you want them to play the 3 technique, if you want to go heavy and scoot them outside, I'm okay with that if the situation calls for it, and it will from time to time, goal line or whatever that might be. But it's just not enough. And so getting the official buy-in from Malik Autry, I think, was a good move. True sophomore and a guy that you're going to have for probably 2 seasons, maybe more, depending on how the NFL views him and what kind of step he takes forward developmentally this season. So all in all, Malik Autry saying, I think it's a big deal. Demarcus Riddick, I think, is fascinating because of impact and versatility and how he can be used and the linebacker room. A lot of reasons. That's next right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel's making them even better. Every Friday night before games tip off, FanDuel gives fans new ways to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app right before the action starts. They also have live betting for the playoff games happening right now. So, hey, before tip-off this Friday, go check out your FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Demarcus Riddick announcing it. Was his on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day? I forget. His was chronologically before Malik Autry's, I believe. So all in all, he joins Xavier Atkins as the 2 guys officially coming back. They put their statements out there. They collabed with the Auburn football Instagram account. Seems legit. And we haven't heard a ton from the linebacker room in the way of departures. Robert Woodyard, a name I was told early on because of Elijah Melendez, and I think he kind of wants to be guaranteed playing time at this point in his career. I don't blame him. He stuck around and really battled for reps, and he did an outstanding job, and he became a better linebacker while he was at Auburn. I think Caleb Wheatland entering the portal, or he may have just ran out of eligibility. No, did he portal? I think he did portal. I'm not sure how he has eligibility. Regardless, it doesn't matter. They're out Woodyard and Wheatland. And you brought in Jaquez Wilkes, Jadarius Tootle, and Adam Balagoon Ali. 3 really talented linebackers in your 2026 class. And so in a position room that looks like Xavier Atkins, Demarcus Riddick, Elijah Melendez, Bryce Diaz, and then the 3 freshmen I just mentioned, I think you're good. You may want to add one more just to kind of backfill a class, get another older guy in for depth, replace the Caleb Wheatland type role from a year ago. Have no issue with that whatsoever. You're going to have to make an interesting pitch in order for that to happen. But Demarcus Riddick is interesting because what we saw him how we saw him used as a freshman, off the edge, wreaking havoc in the backfield. Say, hey, Demarcus, pin your ears back and go find the football. That's what he has been best at and what we've seen him. Yes, he was limited this year when his role was supposed to expand. Xavier Atkins stepped up. Elijah Melendez stepped up. And I just wonder how they're going to use Demarcus Riddick. Because right now, if I had to say today, at pure linebacker, just a guy that you want in the middle of the field, Atkins, obviously, I mean, he's going to be an All-American going into the season. But the glimpses that we saw from Elijah Melendez as a complete linebacker as a freshman, I was saying, hey, this guy could be a thumper and a role player on 3rd and short. And the guy ended the season with multiple interceptions, key interceptions that kept me in football games. And then Bryce Diaz, one of the more rangy players on this defense when you talk about middle of the field defenders, loved the way they used him down the stretch. So I wonder if DJ Durkin's looking at this room and saying, you know what? These guys are good. Sure, we're going to make sure Demarcus Riddick knows how to do that, but you guys just heard me talk about the edge room. There's plenty of questions. If Jared Smith comes back, you feel good about him taking that next step. Once again, we saw glimpses of Jared Smith as a true freshman, and he certainly checked a lot of boxes where, okay, yeah, another offseason, this guy could add 15 pounds and add a little bit more quickness to his step, a little bit more strength, a little more punch with his hands, and he could be a solid edge rusher in the SEC. But you need more. You need a lot in that room. And as we've talked about it, whether it's with Brian, host of The Portal on this show, or with Daryl or Kyle, doesn't matter who it's been with, whenever we talk about the importance of positions, you start with quarterback, and then after that, you can go 2 directions. You can go offensive tackle, or you can go edge rusher. It's about to be expensive. So could Auburn get the best bang for their buck with finding a way to use Demarcus Riddick to help bolster that edge room with Jared Smith? And then you still go out and get a guy or two. Because think about it. If you keep Demarcus Riddick solely at just, your normal linebacker, you don't send him, which I think would be ridiculous. And I don't think that's part of the plan, but I'm just speculating. You're probably going to add 2 offensive tackles. You're probably going to have to add multiple edge/defensive ends. That's a lot of money that adds up quick. So I just wonder. I wonder how they'll use Demarcus Riddick. And here's the beauty in this. There's not a wrong answer on how you use Demarcus Riddick. And that's why his announcement, I think, is a big, big deal. So Malik Autry, Demarcus Riddick announcing they are staying. Good way to start 2026. Please like the video. Please subscribe. If you're tuned in on audio, please subscribe and leave us a review there. Helps the show out a ton. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.